be immensely successful for all of you. May you guys get placed at your dream companies and all good things happen to you is my wish and my blessing. I have not returned yet. I'm leaving tomorrow. It's pretty cold here, so I'm wearing the jacket. Okay. Wonderful, guys. Good to see all of you excited about the new year, huh? But very few people have joined here for some reason. 90 people only, huh? Holidays are for traveling. Yes, they are for traveling. Very few guys have joined for some reason, but that's okay. I think we'll start now. Guys, is the code screen visible to you? Got it, Amit. Yeah, this is a bug on their side. Okay, cool. So very quickly, what we had done in the last class, if you remember. So guys, we had talked about array methods, lots of them. I'll zoom in. Is this better? Okay, great. Guys, so we had talked about lots of array methods, right? Actually, we've exhausted all of them. There aren't any more. There are actually, but you don't need to know anymore right now. Okay. So we had talked about, okay, I'll just start from the very beginning. We had talked about, the first one is for each, right? What for each does is it iterates over the array, every element of the array, and then, but it does not return anything, okay? So during that iteration, whatever you want to do with it, you can do, right? You can console.log every element. You can have another variable outside the array and outside the for each loop, and probably use it to calculate the sum of every element and everything, all those kinds of things you can do with for each, right? The second was filter. Filter actually returns an array, right? And the way it works is everywhere this filter method, it returns wherever this function, right, it returns true. Over there, we end up considering that part of the array, that element of the array to be the answer, right? After that, we had map, right? Very similarly, map is also used to go over each of the element and transform each of the element of the array, right? So depending on our transformation function, the newly returned array will have those transformed elements. Okay. Then we talked about find. Oh, is my voice breaking, guys? Some people are saying no, sir. Okay. It's breaking, huh? Okay, let me do this. I'll just turn off my video. Maybe that helps. Guys, is it any better now? Am I audible? Okay, perfectly audible. Okay, great. Just let me know. Just type on the chat if there's any issue. Maybe I'm at home. That's why internet connectivity is slow. Okay. Yeah. So moving on to find, right? What is the difference between map and for each? Map does not return. Map returns a new array after transforming each element of the array as per the callback function, right? For each does not return a new array. It's only used for iterating over the whole array and returns undefined. Find is used to find elements in the array, right? So basically the way it works is for whichever element you specify a condition, right? Wherever that condition becomes true, that element we return, okay? So again, an example, this was an array of cars. So we tried to find a car which had 0 HP, right? So basically this is going to return us this whole element, right? This particular object. Siddiq, do you have a question or are you making a statement? Okay, can anyone tell us the difference? Does anyone want to volunteer for this? I'll unmute you. The difference between map and filter before I tell it. Okay, Sai, will you do it? You haven't spoken in some days. Sure. Go ahead, Sai.
Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Raj, I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, actually, what is filter means? It travels all the elements, sir. Whichever value returns true, it will create a new array. Hello.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, okay. And map method is used for to run. Actually, in map, it also travels all the element, but it transform into something else, sir.
Okay. And in filter, what happens? Can you repeat?
In filter, whichever condition is accept, it will generate one new more array.
It does not generate a new array, Sai. The result, right? It will
Yeah.
just add that element to the result. Call it like that, na?
Yes. Sir.
Okay. Is it clear now, Siddiq? Okay, great. So in other words, whenever you're going through the array, wherever the condition, right, that you provide in the function returns true, right? For whichever element, that element becomes part of the result. While map is used to transform the array to some other array. Okay. Just like find, there is find index, which instead of returning the element returns the actual index. Then there is something called a sum and every. The way these work is what is happening? Will you give me a second, guys? I'll just try switching my internet. Maybe that helps. Just give me a minute. Hey guys, am I audible now? Is it much better now? Okay. Okay, just say better if it's better. Is it better or not, guys? Am I audible or is it not working? Not breaking, right? No, still breaking. Why is this happening here? Okay, now let me do this. If it breaks again, quickly tell me, guys. Fine. Okay, I'll continue. And if it breaks, just tell me, interrupt me in the middle. Okay, I'll just keep the chat window on. Okay, thank you, Vanshika. Cool. So then I was talking about sum and every, right? The way sum works is if some of the elements of the array satisfy the particular condition given in this callback function, right? Then it returns true, right? Similarly, for every function, it returns true only if every element in the array satisfies that condition, right? So let's say we wanted to check if there is some element in the array which is divisible by 2. Okay, we can just say array.sum element and just return this. Okay, so if for some value it's true, it's going to return us true. Otherwise, it's going to return us false. Okay, guys, is this clear? Sum and every. Okay, so now we know all the array methods. Okay, now I just want to save this one for the last. It's called reduce. and I'll just explain it again from the very scratch, okay? Because it's a complicated one, as we saw in the last class. So we'll begin this. Okay. Does anyone know how reduce works and if they want to speak? Shivam, will you do it? Wow, that is really nice to hear. Okay, go ahead, Shivam, from the very beginning.
Hello.
Hi, Shivam.
Yeah. Hi, sir. I'm audible.
Perfectly.
Okay, sir. Sir, reduce function takes a two argument. First argument as a callback function, and second argument is a initial value of the
Initial value
initial value of the
initial
accumulator.
value of okay, of the accumulator. Perfect.
Accumulator.
Okay.
Okay. Now, sir, it iterate the all element of the array and reduce in a single value and return as a result.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so now just help me with this question, Shivam. Let's say
Okay.
there is an array which had elements this, right? I just want to sum up this array.
Okay, sir.
How can I do this?
Yeah. Sir, we can create a AC in callback function
Okay.
and element. Yeah. And sir,
There are two other arguments inside this function. Do we need them, Shivam?
yeah, no, sir. This time, no.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Now, sir, we can return AC plus element.
Okay, so inside this, you're saying inside this function, what do I write?
Yeah. We can, sir, we can omit the brackets.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Or let's say with brackets, how do I write it?
Sir, we need to explicitly return, return AC plus element.
Okay. Okay. Can you explain to all of us, Shivam, how this will work? How this will give the sum of the array?
Yeah, sir, I can. So, first of all, element one like zero index. सर सबसे पहले जो AC में फर्स्ट एलिमेंट लाइक जो इंडेक्स 0 पे है वो सर AC में जाएगा एंड देन सर रेस्ट ऑफ एलिमेंट it iterate the rest of element in a element like one like element take 2 and
Okay.
then 3.
Shivam, just 1 second. Sorry to stop you.
Okay.
Let's go from the very first iteration. Okay. So guys, what Shivam is saying that of course reduce goes over each of the array elements, right? Because it's an array method. So Shivam, the first time it goes, what is the value of ACC?
Sir, if we do not specify initial value,
yeah, हमने किया
है. Okay, sir. Then sir, it take a initial value ACC, which is like we can specify 0 or something else.
नहीं हमने किया है शिवम, देखो ना, let initial value
okay. Yeah. 0.
Okay, ACC in the first iteration, guys, is 0. And what is element?
Yeah, 0. And sir, element is 1.
Okay, perfect. So what when we return this thing, ACC plus element is equal to 1, right?
Yeah.
And that will become the value of the next iteration. Iteration, ACC will be 1, correct?
Yeah.
And element will be
2.
Perfect. What did we return this time?
1 plus 2.
1 plus 2 is 3, right?
Yeah.
Now we move to the next iteration of the array, next array element, which is 3, right?
Yeah.
So now ACC is
3
from the previous one, and element is also
3,
right? What did we return?
3 plus 3, 6.
Correct. We returned 3 plus 3, 6. Okay. But as you guys know that now there are no more elements to iterate. So the final return thing, right? So if I were to store this in a variable, say const sum is equal to this thing, I say console.log sum. What will be the value here, Shivam?
So 6.
Perfect. Did everyone understand, guys? We explained it very, very simply, right? Everyone? Yes, bolo. Okay, perfect, perfect. That's nice to hear. Good. Okay, I have one more question and उसके बाद ये पूरा clear हो जाएगा. ठीक है? That question is, so this was summing up of elements. Shivam, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now basically I want another question, right? This question is like this, okay? So I want you to create an array, okay? I mean, this time I want to use reduce to create an array of all odd elements. Can you help with that?
Sir, with the help of reduce.
Yes. Filter से तो करना easy है, right?
Yeah.
This is what I want. How can we do this?
Sir, reduce function का use करके sir.
Yes.
Okay. Then sir, okay. Yeah, yeah, sir. We can. Sir, okay. Sir, can I? Sir,
Please.
can I? Okay,
yeah, I'm
sir.
waiting for you. Yeah.
Okay. Sir, we can create a new array, like new array.
Okay. No, but Shivam, if we are using reduce, right?
Yeah.
ACC is going to be the new array, right?
Yeah. एक minute, sir. Sir, okay. ACC plus. Yeah, sir. We can specify like sir ACC plus element and modulus to triple equal to 1.
No. See, देखो, let me explain this one, okay?
Okay.
Guys, very simple, okay? So we have an array. Let's take this array only, right? What I want is 1, 3, and 5. Okay, I want a new array.
Okay.
So like Pradeep mentioned very clearly, arr.reduce callback function, and the initial value this time is going to be an empty array. आप कुछ भी रख सकते हो, right? It does not necessarily have to be a number, right?
Yeah.
And in this thing, I take ECC and I take EL element.
Yeah.
Right? Now what I'm going to do is I'll say if element %2 is not equal to 0, right? Or is equal to 1, either way.
Yeah.
Right? Then what you do is you return ECC dot push EL.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So, or what you can do is you can simply say return ACC. ACC में EL push कर दिया, and then in the next line say return ACC. Okay. So let's just understand this. What happens? See, this is the initial value. So what you have initially is an empty array, right?
Okay.
And now the array looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So in the first iteration, guys, if I just copy paste this here, in the first iteration, what will happen is you will enter this function with 1, right? Is 1% equal to 1? Is it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So empty array dot push 1, right? So now what your result becomes? Your ACC becomes 1, like this. 1. Correct? Yeah. Next time, आपने return ACC किया, the value of ACC is an array with the number 1. Correct?
Yeah.
Now आपने check किया 2. Is element %2 equal to 1? No. Right? So ACC dot push never happened. Right? And what did you return? Still an array with the number 1. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you move to 3, right?
Yeah.
Is 3% equal to 1?
Yes.
So ACC dot push EL. Now ACC becomes 3, 1 comma 3, right?
Yes.
You returned ACC. You returned ACC. यहाँ पे. You entered on 4. Is 4 percentage to equal to 1? No. So return ACC. The array is still 1 comma 3, right? Finally, you end up on 5. Is 5 percentage to equal to 1?
Yes.
Yes. So we say ACC push EL, which is 5, right? We returned ACC and the array is now completely exhausted. So what did we return? We returned ACC as always, which had 1, 3, and 5.
Yes.
Everyone understood? I'll run it. अरे पहले जो पूछा है वो बताओ. Did you guys understand it? Yes or no? Answer the question, guys. Did you understand it? Yes or no? Okay. Now, does anyone have any question? Return ACC not getting served. I'll just explain that. Rahul, initial is given as empty array, na? This is initial, right? Okay. Guys, who understood this completely? Okay. Vishal, सबको समझाओगे? Okay. Come on, Vishal. Vishal will explain this to all of us. Go ahead, Vishal. Explain it. Vishal, unmute yourself. Hello. Vishal, are you speaking something? Okay, it looks like Vishal is having some problem with the mic. Okay. Amit, you want to try? Go ahead. Go ahead, Amit.
Yes, sir. Am I audible now? Hello?
Yes, perfectly. Go ahead.
So here we have been given with an array which contains a few elements. एक array दिया हुआ है जिसमें 1 2 3 4 5 है और हमें क्वेश्चन ये दिया गया है कि हमें एक दूसरा array डिस्प्ले करना है यूजिंग रिड्यूस मेथड जिसमें सिर्फ ऑड नंबर्स हो. तो हमने क्या किया, हम लोगों ने एक यहाँ पर एक ARR जो array था उसमें reduce फंक्शन लगाते हुए हमने एक arrow फंक्शन बनाया उसके अंदर में. So ARR dot reduce में we are passing ACC and EL which happens to be array of the element. ठीक है. तो सबसे पहले क्या होगा, we are not giving any initial value of ACC. तो जब हम I mean blank array दे रहे हैं उसमें कोई element नहीं है तो initially it is taken as zero नहीं, तो फिर क्या होगा, वो initial element का value लेगा. तो वो चेक करेगा जो फर्स्ट एलिमेंट है उसमें वो चेक करेगा कि फर्स्ट एलिमेंट ऑफ दैट एरे वेदर इट इज ऑड और नॉट. जो इफ EL परसेंटेज 2 इज इक्वल टू 1 है उसमें इट इज चेकिंग कि वो पर्टिकुलर एलिमेंट ऑड है या इवन है. जब वो ऑड रहेगा तो ACC डॉट पुश ब्रैकेट में EL क्या कर रहा है कि जो EL एलिमेंट है इट इज पुशिंग that particular element to that empty array ACC.
Correct.
तो ये हमारा फर्स्ट एलिमेंट आ जाएगा रिक्वायर्ड एरे का. इसी तरह से फिर सेकंड एलिमेंट 2 पर वो जाएगा. 2 पर इट विल नॉट बी इक्वल टू 1 तो 2 विल नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड. देन थर्ड एलिमेंट पर जाएगा विच इज 3 एंड लाइकवाइज. तो हमारा जो एरे बनेगा it will be 1 3 and 5. I mean it will have elements 1 3 and 5. और यहाँ पर रिटर्न ACC क्या कर रहा है कि दिस ACC जो हमारा बन रहा है वो उसको उस एरे को रिटर्न कर रहा है. आई मीन ACC एरे को ये फंक्शन रिटर्न कर रहा है. व्हाट आई अंडरस्टूड.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Let me. Thank you, Amit. Guys. So what Amit is saying is return ACC is absolutely important. Why is return ACC important? Because we know that whatever we return right, from the reduce method becomes the value of ACC in the next iteration, right? So basically, इसका ये मतलब है that when you are on 1 and you returned an array, when you returned ACC with this value, right? When you're on 1, it will return ACC with this value. Why? Because initially ACC was an empty array. Empty array में आपने push किया 1, right? And you returned ACC. So ACC became 1. Now this will become the new value of ACC, right? In the next iteration when it's on 2, right? And on 2, basically we returned ACC जैसा मिला था. So it was with 1. Now you go to 3. You check again, hey, is 3 divisible by 2? Is 3, when 3 divided by 2, is it giving the remainder 1? If it is, it means it's an odd number and we push it to the array, right? And we return 1 and 3 because now that is the new value of ACC. And similarly, we keep going. At the end of the array, ACC is what is returned outside the array. Amol, I'll just answer to you. Give me a second. Initial array is value of ACC. So, Amol, we have discussed this many times. Har jagah mein we have used this. I don't know why you have this question, but I'll still answer it. Whenever you divide a number by, whenever you do this, it basically means the modulus, right? What is modulus? The remainder after division. So what is the definition of odd numbers? Odd numbers are numbers which give the remainder 1 when they are divided. So what we are checking is, hey, is EL an odd number? How do we check that? If EL modulus 2 gives 1, it means it's an odd number and we are adding it to our ACC. Amol, ठीक है? Amol, answer, yeah, please. Okay. So we are not assigning empty array like. No, that's not how we work with reduce. The initial value of reduce is specified in here. We've discussed this, guys. जब हमने यहाँ पे 0, when we had written 0 here in the initial value, right? How did it work? It took the initial value of ACC as 0. And then whatever you return from here becomes the new value of ACC in the next iteration. Do we still have a doubt, guys? Okay. If we give the initial value as an empty string, there is no method in string which is push. Okay, so empty string dot push will be an error. Sir, initial array is value of ACC. No, the initial value of ACC for the first iteration of the array is what we give yahan pe. So what are we starting our iterations with? We are starting it with an empty array. That's what this empty array is about. Did everyone understand this? Yes. Okay. Amit has a question. Sir, does it mean that we are giving undefined to ACC, so it takes EL as ACC value? Absolutely not, Amit. Whatever you give here is the initial value of ACC in the first iteration. Okay. If you remove the initial value, what happens is it assumes that the initial value of ACC was the first element of the array. Okay. So in this case, the value of ACC becomes 1 And the iterations do not start from the first element, they start from second element onwards. Pradeep, for the first time, ACC is initialized with the initial value, जो हम देते हैं, which is not initialized after the callback function. It is initialized before the callback function. अगर after करेगा तो everything is wrong, ना? When you go inside this, there has to be an initial value of ACC, right? Otherwise, how you will do ACC.push? Push can only be done on arrays. Is everyone clear with this? Shall I move forward, guys? Is reduce now clear to all of us? Simple concept, the value that you return each time, the value that each iteration returns becomes the value of ACC in the next iteration. Concept is only this much, guys. Uske baad, however you want to play with it, play with it. So two concepts here. One is initial value, right? Whatever you specify here becomes the initial value. Initial value, matlab first time the iteration goes, that is the value of ACC. Right? After that, what happens is whatever you return from here in that iteration becomes the value of ACC in the next iteration. तो जो 1 के लिए return करेंगे वो 2 पे ACC का value होगा. जो 2 के लिए return करेंगे वो 3 पे ACC का value होगा. Everyone good with this? How we can do it in single line. Okay. This is how I will do it. I will just say if, look here once. I'm just going to say EL percentage 2 is equal to 1. Okay. It's not that we can do this in one line, but I'll have to teach you one concept for that, which I'll be teaching later on. So if you still want to see, I'll just show you. Okay, let me do that later. Don't worry. Okay, chalo, by the way, since you've asked, let me quickly explain that probably. Okay, so what are we looking for? If you want to do it in one line, ternary operator will be of great help. Okay, so we are going to see if current element percentage 2 is equal to 1, right? Then guys, ACC dot push current element, else return just ACC. Okay, anyway, not important right now. Can we apply this with strings? Of course you can. Reduce just does the job of going through the array. Whatever you want to return is up to you. Are we clear, everyone? Okay, we're clear. Good. So now I'm just going to go over another important concept in JavaScript, right? So it's called closures, right? So some of you might have been asked this question in your interview. What are closures? Okay. So guys, we'll try to understand what are closures. Okay. So one of the more sought after or slightly complex topics in JavaScript. It's called closures. Let's understand what is a closure. Okay. So guys, the way JavaScript works is, we know that if we are writing a function, let's say ABC, and let's say I have some variables inside it, right? So let's say I have let my variable is equal to something, and let's say then I'm returning my var plus 1. Okay, so simple function. What does it do? It initializes a variable to 1 and then returns that variable plus 1. Okay, so we can just call it add1. Everyone understands this? How add1 is working? Okay, so the way it's going to work is you call it add1, and it's always going to return 2, right? Why is it going to return 2? Because we have declared my variable to 1, right? And return 1 plus 1 will always be equal to 2, right? So basically it's a function which always returns 2, right? So let's understand this. In JavaScript, variables can have 2 types of scopes, right? There are some variables which we call as global variables, which have global scope, and there are some variables which have local scope or are called local variables, right? So guys, the way local variables work is in local variables are the variables inside a function, right? What I'm saying is my var, right, has no existence outside this function. We have talked about this. So if I say console.log my var, basically it does not have a value. You can't do this. So let's try this. It says my var is not defined. Okay, because my var was not initialized. It's outside of this function. It does not have any value. So what is it called? It's a global variable. It's a local variable to this function. And similarly, let's say I have this variable, right? And it has the value 2, or let's say just 1, right? Now this global variable can be accessed here also. And it can be accessed here also, right? So there is no, this code will work perfectly. So 1 for this and 1 for this. Got it? Did everyone understand global and local variables? Okay, nice. Now, the way closures work, right? Or what are closures? There is a way using which we can make global variables as local variables. Okay, let me explain that again. So guys, if you, okay, let me explain it like this. Okay, in JavaScript, we know one thing, right? We know that functions can be passed around just like normal variables. When I say pass around, it means you can send a function inside the object, right? I mean, inside, you can pass any variable inside a function, and then you can do with the function whatever you want to do, right? Now, this is one thing that you know. The second thing that you know is any variable inside a function always has access to it, right? What I'm saying is inside the add1 function, when you have created my var variable, right? Right, guys? This my var variable is always accessible inside this function. Correct? Similarly, the my global var, this variable is accessible outside this function, right? Of course, and it's also accessed inside this function. Correct? Okay, perfect. Now, what I'm going to do is very simple. Let's just try to understand it. I had add, instead of add1, okay, I'll do it here. Okay, I'm going to create a function which is called add number. Okay. If we may change my var to my value or my number, I don't see a point in doing that, Amit. But anyway, let's just move forward right now. Okay, so let's say we have add number function right now. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is, okay, I'll call it add one to number. Okay, so what basically what is the name of this function? What it tells us, hey, that this function is adding one to some number. Okay, so very simply, what we can do is, let's say it takes a number and it returns num plus one, right? And now you guys know that we can have a statement saying console.log add one to number, we pass 3 to it. And we know what is going to be the result of this. The result of this is going to be 4, right? Because what happened is we said add one to number. It called this function. We passed 3 to it, and the answer result returned was 3 plus 1, which is 4. Right? Is this clear, guys? Everyone? Add one to number. Okay, great. Now let's just complicate this. I mean, I'll explain why we are doing that. I'm creating another function which is called add one to number closure, right? And let's understand what I'm going to do here, right? So guys, now what this number does is, instead of add one to number, it says add number to number. Okay, and let me actually remove the closure. Why complicated? So it's now doing add number to number. Okay, so what is going to happen now? It takes a number num, right, and it adds another number to it. Okay, but not so simply. What I'm going to do here is, now instead of returning number plus number, which I want to do, I am returning a function here. Okay, I'm going to return a function here. What this function will take, okay, let me call this num1 and let me call this num2. Okay, and this guy is going to return num1 plus num2. Right, guys? So let's just try to understand what we did here. What we did here is we created a function which is called add number to number. Okay, it had one argument which was called num1, right? And what this function is returning another function, okay, which takes num2 as an argument. And what does it return? It returns num1 plus num2. Guys, do you understand this construct, everyone? Slightly complicated, but just try to understand the construct. So there is a function. What that function is returning, that function is returning another function. Okay. Everyone, I need to hear yes from you if you understood. Okay, perfect. So let's run this and let's see what it repeat karo. Pallavi, kya repeat karo? I'm asking you if you understood this. What are we doing here is very simple. We have function add number to number is the name of the function. It takes one parameter which is called num1. And what does it return? It returns another function, right? It returns another function. What that function takes? It takes num2 as a parameter and returns num1 plus num2. पल्लवी क्लियर है आपको? अमूल, ना तो मैंने होस्टिंग पढ़ाया है और ना मैंने नेस्टेड फंक्शंस पढ़ाया है. Yes. What is a higher order function? Higher order function is a function which either takes a function as a parameter or returns a function, right? So it is doing one of those things. Confusion क्या है? आदम question पूछो. Confusing मत बोलो. What is the question? What are you not understanding? ये बताओ. दो रिटर्न. होस्टिंग वेरिएबल में पढ़ाया है गाइस, फंक्शंस में नहीं पढ़ाया, नेस्टेड फंक्शंस के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नहीं पढ़ाया है. I remember what I have taught. Okay. Confusion क्या है? Let's try to understand this. Okay. What is it doing? It's a function. What is the name of the function? It's called add number to number. ठीक है. What does this function return? This function is returning another function. आदम समझ में आ रहा है इतना आपको? What is this function returning, Adam? Adam, what is this function returning? बताओ. नहीं यार, num2 थोड़ी ना रिटर्न कर रहे हैं, क्या बोल रहे हो? What is add number to number returning? Just answer that. It's returning another function, right? Another function. ठीक है. और वो function क्या return कर रहा है? वो function क्या return कर रहा है आदम? It's returning num1 plus num2, which is supposedly a number. तो guys, इसमें doubt क्या है? We have a function which is returning a function, ठीक है? And that function is returning num1 plus num2. What is the doubt here? See, I know this is the first time you're seeing code like where a function is returning a function and inside that you're returning something. But if you break it down, it's not that tough, right? अरे num2 इसका आर्ग्यूमेंट है यार, जैसे num1 इसका आर्ग्यूमेंट था, num2 इसका आर्ग्यूमेंट है. You can't name it. It's an anonymous function. Yes, Amol, that's the right thing to say. Okay, but anyway, let's just build on this. So let me just call this for you and then you will understand. Okay, so I'll take it here. I'll type this out. Okay, so now what I do is I say add number to number and I pass 1 to it. Right? So guys, can you tell me what this will return? Everyone, सोच के बोलो. I'm calling add number to number with 1. नहीं अमित, बिल्कुल गलत. बिल्कुल गलत. What is add number to number going to return? No, wrong again. कोई तो सही बोलो. No, it's not. It can't be a value. आप ये देखो ना. What is add number to number returning? Tell me this. What is add number to number returning? No, just अरे यार, give me a simple answer ना. It's returning a function. Perfect. Perfect. So what when I call it with add number to number with 1, what is it going to return me? It's going to return me a function. समझ में आया guys? What it is going to return me? It's going to return me a function. यही तो लिखा है हमने. ये समझ में आया सबको? What it's going to return? It's going to return a function. Okay. Now ये जो function इसने return किया guys, the function that it returned, functions are meant to be called, right? Functions को हम किसी value के साथ call करते हैं, right? So what if I call this with the value, let's say 2? Can I do that? So understand it like this. This thing up till here, I'll just zoom in. This thing up to here, what is it? It's a function, right? And then you are calling this function with another parameter, which is 2. Right? Guys, are you following? And now when I press enter, the answer is 3. Right? Okay. Now, simple thing, right? So we also had an older function which was called add 1 to number, right? इधर देखते हैं. If I have this function and I call add 1 to number and I pass 1 to it, 3 to it, what will be the answer? 4. Perfect, right? Why is that happening? Because this guy is returning a number. So whatever value you pass to it, it will add 1 to it and return that number, correct? And in the case of add number to number, when you call this for the first time, add number to number, let's say you call it 3 this time, what it is going to return? Everyone, what will this return? अरे यार सुधीर भाई क्या बोल रहे हो फिर से? Right? It's going to return a function, but what is special about this function? The speciality about this function is it's basically returning a function which is going to add 3 to any number. Am I right? Correct? Please understand this, guys. Complex hai concept, but please just follow me with me. So what I'm going to do is I'll create another variable, right? And I'm going to call it add 3, or I select add 3 number. And I do this. Let me expand this. Does this statement make sense to everyone? What I have done here is I'm saying add number to number. I passed it the value 3, right? Just look at this part of the screen. What it is going to return, guys? It is going to return a function, right? It is going to return this function, right? It is going to return this function. And what is the speciality of this function? It takes num2, right? एक value लेता है और उसमें num1 add कर देता है. But num1 has already been predefined to 3. Isn't it? Yes. So if I press enter here, please understand this. So now I have created a function which is called add 3 to number. Whatever value I call it with, it will just add 3 to it. Did we understand this, everyone? Immensely complicated, but I think we've tried to break this down and now everyone understands. Guys, सबको समझ में आ रहा है? Yes बोलो please एक साथ. नहीं आ रहा तो पूछो. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Wonderful, yaar. Amazing. It takes people literally weeks to understand this. You guys are doing very well. Okay. But now, of course, we know arrow functions. Okay. So we are going to write this better. Okay. So how am I going to write this? I'm going to write it like this. If you understand this, then you've already come a very long way in JavaScript, guys. Perfect. मजा आ गया यार. Right? अमित ऐसे मत सोचो. एरो के अंदर एरो का कोई मतलब नहीं है. What is an arrow? Arrow is nothing. Arrow is a function, right? इसको ऐसे समझो. Okay, let me write both the versions here. Okay, I'm just going to copy this. Okay, now this is good. Okay, both these two do the same thing. Okay, so basically this is a function which returns a function. Okay, so add number to number is a function which returns a function. So this part is a function, right? And this part is also a function, right? This is just a more concise way of writing it. Okay, guys, is everyone clear? This is your introduction to functional programming. Okay, It's supposed to be a very complicated concept in computer science. Functional programming, it's called. Higher order functions are just one of the very small elements of functional programming. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce functional programming to you guys today and how it relates to closures and everything. Do we understand this, everyone? These two things only I've said. Okay. Shall I move forward now? Okay. Cool. So now what we have achieved with this, let's just try to understand. Okay. So let's say I have this add number to number. Let's expand this further. Okay. So now guys, what this is a function factory. Okay. Why am I calling it function factory? Because it allows me to create, again, I'll repeat, it allows me to create various types of functions. Okay. Just understand this. So I have now const add one to number. What I will give to that, I'll say add number to number 1. Then I'll say const add 2 to number. Number to number. Similarly, const add 3 to number, add number to number 3. Okay. So now from this one function, we have 3 functions. Okay. What are those 3 functions? One is called add one to number, right? And as the name suggests, whatever value you pass to it, let's say I pass 9 to it, it will give me 10. If I have add 2 to number and I pass 8 to it, it's going to give me 10. Similarly, when I have add 3 to number and I pass 7 to it, it's going to give me 10. Is everyone clear with this? Everyone, quickly. Perfect, yaar. So extremely happy to hear this. Not an easy one to grab. When I used to study JS, right? It took me days to understand what the hell has this book written. Yahan pe. Okay. It's not that num1 is constant. Both of them are always variables, right? You just made it constant by creating this value. So you created add number to number 1, calling it with 1. Basically what that did is it created a new function which adds 1 to a number. Okay. Ankit, clear hai bhai? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so having said that, right, what I'm going to do now is basically tell you what closures are. Okay. I'll just open the formal definition because I want to stick to it for you guys. Kindly paste it in VS Code. Sure, Amit, let me do that. Just copy all of this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So formally now that we have this understanding, so what is a closure, guys? Let me just try to explain it with the formal official definition. A closure is the combination of function, right, which is bundled together with its variables, right? Let me explain that again. Okay. Let's say you have a function, right? And this time, this function, what it does is, it just has, it just does the job of writing something to the screen, okay? Console.logging. So I'm going to say it. I'm going to call it say hello. Right, guys? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say var name, or I could have used let also, anything works. I'll say var name is equal to Amit, or let name is equal to Amit, right? Then what I'll do here is I'll have a function, right, which will be called display hello. That's it. Okay. Now what this guy is going to do is this guy is going to say console.log hello name. Okay. In here, I'm going to call display hello. Right. And outside of all of this, I'm going to call say hello. And I'll just copy this whole code to the terminal, to the browser. Okay. Does everyone is everyone understanding this question? I mean, this function, this construct. Let me explain it again. I have a function which is called say hello, right? There is a name, which is called name is equal to Amit. Now understand this, guys. This variable, right? This is a variable which has, what is the scope of this variable? The scope has the variable of this function, say hello function, correct? Yes or no, guys? Yes, correct. Perfect. Inside this, inside this function, I created another function which is called display hello, right? What it is saying is, it's saying console.log hello, comma, what is outside of this function, right? So for this function, for the display hello function, name is a global variable. Is that clear? Name, what I'm saying is, I'll repeat again, name is a global variable for display hello. Yes or no, guys? Okay, perfect. After which, what I'm doing is, right outside this, I'm saying I'm calling display hello. Correct? I'm calling display hello here, right? And finally, outside say hello, I'm outside the say hello. I mean, after declaring this function, let me press enter. The function is declared. Now, when I call say hello, what should happen, guys? What should happen? Hello, Amit. Right? So how it worked? It called this, it declared this variable, it created this function, and it said display hello, and this display happened. Right? Okay, perfect. I think it's getting clear for everyone. Now, this was about how you understand the scopes in JavaScript, right? So when I say scopes, what I'm saying is, there was a global scope here. Okay, there was a global scope here, right? And this variable is basically local to say hello, and it's global for display hello. Why display hello, sir? Okay, one by one. Adam, what is your question? Adam, question एक line में लिखो, कुछ भी नहीं समझ आ रहा है. Priyanka, can we call display / hello outside? Priyanka, display hello is not available outside, right? Display hello ka scope is only inside this. How can you call it outside say hello? Okay. What are you saying, Adam? Function display hello वैसे भी रन होगा ना? कैसे रन होगा बताओ, कैसे रन होगा? बिना फंक्शन को कॉल किए कैसे रन होगा? No, there is no return here. When say hello calls, see, how does the function call work? Let's understand. When we call say hello, right? Everything that's written inside this function is going to run. So what happened? You said let name is Amit. You created a new function and then you called that function. Adam, shall I unmute you because I'm not able to understand your question? Adam, मैं आपको unmute कर दूं? Please ask your question.
Sir, hello. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
सर जो फंक्शन डिस्प्ले हेलो है ना वो मतलब विदाउट वो भी रन हो जाएगा ना फंक्शन से हेलो?
मतलब रन कैसे होगा? आपने वो से हेलो के अंदर ही लिखा है ना?
लेकिन अनदर फंक्शन क्यों ऐड किया आपने? एक फंक्शन तो ऑलरेडी है।
वो अभी भूल जाओ ना. Now you are questioning what I have done, why I have done this. That's a different question.
हाँ,
That's a
मतलब दो
different question.
फंक्शन वही पूछ रहा हूँ सर, डिस्प्ले हेलो का क्या काम है इसमें?
डिस्प्ले हेलो का कोई काम नहीं है उसके अंदर में. Okay, I got your question. I'm muting you. Okay. So basically, Adam is asking this. Adam is asking, ऐसे भी तो कर सकते हैं. This is what he's saying. Right, Adam? But then how? So if you are able to do it like this, then how do I teach you nested functions and closures? And why we do that is a different question, right? You will understand that when we start talking about this. So, okay, guys, for everyone, the way we are doing it this way is to build the concept of closures and nested functions, right? Which is going to be very useful later on, right? So if you question the very basic assumption, इसको सीधा भी तो कर सकते हैं. The answer is of course yes, right? But then how do you understand the concept, right? Okay, anyway, someone also had a question. What will it return when we call display hello? Display hello is a function, Pratibha, which does not return anything, right? Display hello returns undefined. So when you call display hello, it's not returning anything. It's printing hello, Amit, but it's not returning anything. Siddiq, let me teach you that. Uske baad puchna question. Okay. Guys, can I move forward? Okay. Just copying this again. Okay. So the only point that we are trying to make is this. Okay. Say hello is a function for which this guy is a local variable, but this local variable for say hello is a global variable for display hello. Okay. Okay. So this example basically helped us understand the scoping in JavaScript. Okay, now what we are going to understand is how does this thing work, right? So what I've done is instead of now returning this function like this, okay? Understand this, guys? Instead of now calling this function here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return this thing. Okay. It's very similar to the last example, but let's understand this, what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. So I just created a say hello function. So now what happens is when I call say hello, what do I get? Anyone? What is the value that I get? Absolutely not. सब गलत बोल रहे हो. Function. सुमित ने सही बोला. प्रियंका ने भी सही बोला. अजय ने सही बोला. Okay, अब बहुत सारे लोगों ने सही बोला. So when I call say hello, right? What I'm going to get is I'm going to get a function which says hello name. Correct? Now, when I say hello, I got a function. When I call this function, which say hello gave me, what I get is hello Amit. Understood, guys? Okay, now let's look at the code. What has happened here? It is a function inside which you had let name as Amit, and you had it was returning a function with hello and name. Okay. When you called say hello, it returned you a function. When you called that function, it returned you hello Amit. Is this concept clear? Okay. Perfect, perfect, nice. Okay, now the point. Okay, why did we do all of this? Okay, guys, the point is, if you look at it, if you look at this code just right, so just understand what this function is, right? Okay, so when you called say hello like this, it returned a function, and I'm going to save it to say hello to Amit. Okay, now what should immediately strike you as the problem is, hey, the name Amit, right, which was present yahan pe, right? And this guy basically returned a new function, okay, which was this function. How does this function, right, or say hello to Amit, still remember the name Amit? This is the question that you should ask yourself. Okay, because what say hello returned is only a function, right? And is function ka outer boundary, or whatever, it's the surrounding of this function, right? The surrounding of this function is having that variable to which this guy is getting access to. Correct? Did everyone understand what I just said? Okay. Now, this is what is called a closure in JavaScript. Okay. The point is, a function remembers the reference to its outside variables, even when it's inside another function. Okay. So, I mean, maybe this concept is not sounding very crazy to you right now, because maybe this is the first programming language that you're learning. But in any other language, this does not happen. What does not happen? Again, yes, of course, I'll repeat it. The point is, when I said say hello, right, what happened is it returned me this function, right? This function I saved in to another variable, right? What was that variable? I'm calling it say hello to Amit, right? When I call that variable, right? Now understand this, guys. Say hello to Amit is outside this function say hello, right? Shubham, Sweta. Say hello to Amit is a new variable which is definitely outside this, right? But somehow you still have an access to a variable which was inside this function, right? Understand this again. Say hello to Amit was definitely created outside this function. Okay? And हमने क्या पढ़ा है, guys? हमने पढ़ा है that hey, a variable, right? Let is basically having lexical scope, right? So basically, after this, there is no way you can access name. Correct? Name is accessible only inside say hello function, basically inside these brackets. But here we were able to access it even outside the function, right? Why we were able to do this? Why we were able to do this? Because in JavaScript, the concept of closure says that a function, right? This function or this inner function remembers the reference to variables outside of it. And that's what a closure is. Guys, yes, no, maybe? Did you get the point? I'll repeat it again. ठीक है? हमने अब तक ये पढ़ा है that these numbers, हिंदी में बोलता हूँ, हमने अब तक ये पढ़ा है that the variables which are inside a function, especially जब हम उन्हें let या cons से बनाते हैं, they cannot be accessed outside the function, and that's very true. ठीक है? अगर आप यहाँ पे name बोलो तो name करके कुछ है नहीं guys. Okay? There is nothing which is called name equal to Amit, right? But still you are able to access Amit outside this function. How? Because this function was actually returning another function, and in JavaScript, a returned function, right, remembers the reference to its environment. मतलब जहां से वो return हो रहा था, it can have access to the variables in outside its environment. तो basically guys, इसको जो भी इस function को जो भी variables global थे, अभी के लिए सिर्फ एक था अमित, इसका reference can still be accessed inside this function. That's the concept of a closure. Right? So what have we learned? We have learned what are function inside a function, right? How basically we can create a function का factory, right? कहाँ पे सीखा guys? हमने यहाँ पे सीखा when we were creating add one to number, add two to number using just this guy, right? And finally, we realized that hey, we can access a function's environment using a closure. So this function, this guy, it does not have a name, of course, forms a closure with its environment. इसको closure कहते हैं. Everyone clear? Don't worry, I'll still be repeating it tomorrow and maybe today also. But I'll definitely stop here. Yeah, I'm stopping here. 80% is good, Abhinash. Ask the questions, Vata. Gaurav, that is a side effect of what's happening, right? But what we should remember is a function returned from another function, right? So this is a function which is returned from say hello function, right? Remembers the reference to its environment, right? And that's what a closure is. Okay, so if I have to put this in word, a closure is the combination of a function and the environment in which that function was created. Okay, so ये वाला function था, it still remembers the functions or the variables in its environment. इसके environment में अभी के लिए क्या variable है? Name. राहुल, आकाश, clear है अब? आकाश, अगर आप रिटर्न नहीं करोगे तो आप उस फंक्शन को कभी बाहर एक्सेस नहीं कर पाओगे, राइट? है ना? तो फिर तो वो पॉइंट ही नहीं होगा कि उसको याद रखना था एनवायरनमेंट को या नहीं. सो दैट दिस वाज दैट एग्जांपल, राइट? यहाँ पे देयर वाज नथिंग गेटिंग रिटर्न्ड, बट जब आप डिस्प्ले हेलो बोल रहे थे, सो दिस गाय हैड एक्सेस टू दिस नेम. वो तो है ही, राइट? आकाश, क्लियर? विशाल, डिस्प्ले हेलो, ठीक है, is something which exists only inside say hello, right? say hello के बाहर display hello का कोई existence नहीं है, right? Because this is a function which is declared in this scope, so it's only callable inside this scope, right? And of course, then when called inside this guy, this will have access to all the outer variables. यहाँ पे अभी name है, कुछ भी हो सकता है, कुछ भी हो सकता है. But the question was always, how do I take access to these variables outside say hello, right? And the answer is closure. When you're returning this function, now this function will always remember कि भाई मैं इस environment से आया हूँ, and it will remember all the variables outside it. Guys, are we clear? Is it making sense? Yes, Amit. Okay, so guys,